Edmonton Oilers fans, it's time to keep getting excited. Huge trade, and I'm going to talk about potential moves they could make after this Ryan McLeod trade. So if you're new, welcome. I hope you hit that subscribe button, like, notification bell, all that good stuff. I definitely want to see you on the channel more throughout the season. So looking at this, I mean, what a trade. I honestly think the Oilers have been the absolute biggest winners of the offseason. I'm not just saying that at this point. They were, for me, were always like a top 7, top 8 based on the moves they had made. They signed Jeff Skinner. They jumped into the top 5 for me, and now this move just jumps them right to the top. Matt SAVOIE, to me, is one of the more intriguing prospects I've talked about, and one of the better prospects in the Sabres system, becomes now the best prospect in the Oilers system, and all they did was trade Ryan McLeod and Tyler Tullio, who, I mean, I like Tullio, but definitely not high in terms of immediate or near future development. Like, he's not going to be an impact guy soon. Ryan McLeod, third line center, 6'3", 24 years old, served the Oilers well, but again, you saw in the Cup final, not as impact as you'd want. Matt SAVOIE, in the near future, in my opinion, can be an impact player. You're seeing it across the board in terms of like Twitter, but I mean, just overall right now, the reaction is just so one-sided that if the Sabres somehow come out big with this, I mean, kudos, because Kevin Adams is definitely in the minority in terms of thinking this was a good one. Like, Ryan McLeod, I think, could benefit from the change of scenery. I talked about that in my Sabres video. Closer to home, all these things, better fit in terms of being like stuffed in the wing, stuffed in the fourth line. Now he'll have a dedicated role as the third line center in Buffalo, so that could benefit him. But to give up Matt SAVOIE, I mean, Oilers fans, you got to be excited about this guy. Skilled right shot forward, big part of Moose Jaw's WHL championship run, and yeah, I mean, he looks so dynamic. I know some people are going to talk about like how he went a little ghost mode for World Juniors, but I think the age that he's at, I think what he's already showing, I think this might end up being a huge mistake for the Sabres. So, yeah, this is kind of all the stuff I talked about in my Sabres video. SAVOIE instantly becomes the Oilers' top prospect, and everyone's celebrating. Like, the Oilers don't even have a dedicated general manager in Jeff Jackson, and the management's making it work. So, Sabres draft history. I mean, guys, it's time to now make a big trade. I think... I can't even believe this. I think you make a big splash now if you're Edmonton. I think you try to dump the Ceci contract. I think you try to get Nurse to waive. Nurse is a Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds alum. Kyle Dubas loves acquiring these guys. Cody Ceci was actually a good fit in Pittsburgh. I think if you're Edmonton, you could package something pretty nice to try to get Erik Karlsson out of Pittsburgh. There's other options out there, but I think Edmonton's decision now is like, how much trust do you have in Broberg? And how much motivation do you have to go after a top 4 defenseman? There's guys out there I think they could acquire. Like, past Erik Karlsson, you could maybe talk to St. Louis about a Parayko. I think you could talk to Anaheim about a Cam Fowler. There's so many. I could go through the list. So, I mean, Chicago with Seth Jones. Like, there's guys out there that maybe don't have the best contracts, but maybe you could convince Nurse to go the other way, or convince that other team to take a chance on Darnell Nurse. Because I think Nurse still has a lot of abilities to be a top 4 guy and a consistent top 4 guy, and he showed that in Edmonton's run, specifically at big moments in the Cup final. So I think Nurse can still be a very good top 4 defenseman in this league, but maybe it's with a different team. So at the end of the day, maybe if you're Edmonton, you package a few intriguing prospects like a Borgo, and then maybe a first-round pick next year. Or 2026, you push it because they don't have a 2025 first left. So I think you make a big splash, and I mean, the forward group, guys, has to be one of the best forward groups in the National Hockey League, if not the best. Like, your top line could be Skinner, McDavid, Hyman, Holloway, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, and a third line that I actually think they should run this, because Draisaitl, McDavid can drive their own lines. Obviously, Draisaitl went a little ghost mode in the conference final and Cup final, but I think the injuries play a part in that. So again, there's always a scenario where the Draisaitl trade rumors and all that stuff is going to come up. At the end of the day, guys, take Draisaitl out for a second. Like, obviously, that's not the case. Draisaitl is on this team, and I think he's going to stay on this team. But even if Draisaitl wasn't on the team, you $8.5 million cap hit off the board there for a second, that's still a pretty good forward group. Like, that's still one of the better forward groups in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, in terms of the depth. But, of course, like I said, Leon Draisaitl's there. And if you did ever want to just have a good time with Draisaitl and McDavid, you can still set up something pretty nice. All right? that's ridiculous. So you have so many options with this Oilers forward group. And then the defense group, if you were to acquire an Erik Karlsson, that's a pretty good defense group. And the goaltending situation. Again, the goaltending situation is always going to be a conversation. But I do think, and I'll cancel this trade for a second. I do think there's a scenario. Again, you'd have to clear probably Ceci, maybe Ceci and Bourgault to Pittsburgh. And you get a future second-round pick. Again, we're just doing examples here. But I think that's something they would consider, just dumping Ceci for either a mid-round pick or just attach an asset to move the Ceci contract, because teams know that Edmonton needs the cap space. And yeah, maybe it ends up being something like that. So I could totally see something like this just going into next year, just to start for their defense group: Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, Kulak, Broberg, Brown. And then that's your forward group. But again, I do think if you're Edmonton, you should be aggressive and go after a defenseman now, because, I mean, you got a nice asset for Ryan McLeod. Your forward group is perfect. And now the only question marks for your team going into next year are going to be, can Stuart Skinner play at his best like we've seen him? And can you possibly move one of Nurse, Ceci, or both and get another legit top four defenseman to complement Ekholm and Bouchard, and hopefully Broberg's progression keeps showing. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Again, just a huge trade. It might not be a huge trade on the surface, but I think people are going to see what Matt SAVOIE does in the next few years. I think he's going to challenge for a roster spot right away with Edmonton, but I think with the Oilers' depth, it's just not going to happen this year. So within the next couple of years, you're going to see his impact. I think you could see his impact in the AHL, and then Sabres might have a different perspective depending on what Ryan McLeod does with Buffalo. So subscribe, like, comment, notification bell, as I always say. I hope to see you guys more on the channel. Peace.